there. So, this past summer, I was at a beach bar, and I struck up a conversation with a man who, I kid you not, had the hair and bone structure of a Disney prince. Very rare indeed. So I was talking to him, right? Here's how that conversation went. He said, "So you married?" "No." "Boyfriend?" "No." "Okay then," he said. "So what's wrong with you?" Yep. He was kidding, kind of. If I had been in a relationship, he probably would have thought and said something different. But because I was available, I was suspect. So here's what I said. There's nothing wrong with me. Because there is nothing wrong with me. And there's nothing wrong with you either. Me and you and many, many millions of people in this country are not married and may not even be partnered in any significant way. I mean, this is not an oddity. Our country is crawling with single people. It's true. Let's take a look at some of the numbers from 2014. All right, so 107 million people were unmarried. 53% of women were unmarried. And 34 million people were living alone. That's almost a third of all households. That is a significant number of people. And there's nothing wrong with them either. And yet, the idea persists. If you're single, you're suspect. I mean, really, we are more forgiving of people who are in a subpar relationship because, well, at least they found someone than someone who isn't in anything at all. I mean, you might feel bad for your friend. You might say, "Oh, honey, you could do better." But even that's a little weird, right? Because it's on her to do better, like we're talking about her SAT score or her golf swing. Meanwhile, you try to explain to Aunt Dorothy why you're still single. And you'll hear all kinds of things, like you care too much about your career, which they never say to men, by the way. Or my favorite, you're just too picky. There are 3 myths that have the potential to make you very unhappy, especially if you're single. The first myth is that nothing is under your control. Nothing. The universe, fate, reigns supreme. You don't have a say in it. So if your relationship ended or you can't find a relationship, not in the cards. This is victim mentality. The second myth is you're 100% responsible for everything that happens to you. So if you don't have what you want, you're not manifesting hard enough. And if you have what you don't want, well, you put out a bat signal for bad vibes. I'm sorry. That's on you. I don't get down with this kind of thinking. I never have. We get to choose how we respond to the world. But to think that you control the universe with your thoughts, that's called delusion. The third myth is that for a relationship to be worth it or for love to be real, it must never, ever end. It's no wonder why we think this. We have been basically fed this since birth. What is the last line of every fairy tale you've ever heard? And they lived happily ever after. The only acceptable end to a relationship is that there is no end. Not only is this untrue, this is self-defeating because it could cause you to stay in a relationship that's no good or toxic because, well, to leave would be to admit you failed. It could also cause you to look back at your past relationships and interpret those as mistakes or as symptoms of some incurable disease you have, which I assure you, you do not. Now, full disclosure, I have never been married. I have dated a lot, but let's face it, I've had some practice. I have been dating for most of my life. So I've had some relationships, some like meh, and some were great. And they were great for the time. They were what I should have been in. And those relationships had something in common. They had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the end was always hard. I cried my eyes out every time, but not because I thought, well, it should never end, but because I knew it had to. Now, You've also loved some people, I'm guessing. And those relationships started sweet, ended a little sour. I know, it's to be expected. But to see them all as mistakes just because they ended, that doesn't seem fair. Let's face it, there's only one condition in our culture for a truly successful relationship, and that is that you die while you're still in it. That is it. This girl's like, it's so true. You could be married for 20 years, you get divorced, and you failed at marriage. But you could be married for 20 years, think about getting a divorce, go to sleep, never wake up, and you died happily married. Congratulations. Now, this story doesn't do us any good anymore. As women in this country, in this culture, okay, not all women, but for the most part, we are freer than we've ever been in recorded history. I mean, really, this is terrific. Of course, give yourselves a round of applause. There is tremendous upside to this. You can decide what to do if you want to partner, when to partner, and you can survive on your own. But the downside is you may also survive some relationships. It's true. Now, I know, you're dreaming of the one great love story. We all do. But what if I told you there wasn't one? What if your life was a collection of stories? Isn't it already? Think about all the people you've met over the course of your life who've changed you, who've made you who you are. Do they not count because you don't talk to all of them anymore? Think about all the jobs you've had, the careers. They taught you what you know now and what you love doing. Do they not count anymore either because you don't do those jobs anymore? Think of all the places you've lived. The house you grew up in, your first apartment, the beach house. You've had many addresses. But didn't you at some point call them all home? Such a shame, really, that we don't allow ourselves the same latitude in love, that we insist on grading our romantic relationships strictly as pass-fail. Now, you are not a Ziploc bag. You are not once and done. You think you're damaged goods because you love someone else once? Please, this is ageist, sexist, and untrue. It's predicated on the patriarchal belief that women are valuable when they're untouched. This is not how the world works anymore, and we may live in a disposable culture, but we are renewable resources. Yes, thank you. I did draw that, by the way. We are capable of loving not once, but many times. But let's talk about baggage for a minute, because I know you're worried about it. You're like, oh, I have so much weighing me down. Oh, who's going to like me, blah, blah, blah. Let me ask you this. When in your life has having experience ever been a bad thing? I'll tell you what, I like a little baggage. I don't know that I'd trust somebody who's never held a thing of value in his or her life. Do you? Still, some say they won't risk it again. In the wake of heartbreak, disappointment, loss, they say, that's it, I'm staying single forever. Sound familiar? They say, I don't need a man, okay? Well, no, please, giving you the hand. No, you don't need a man, but you might want a man. You might want a woman. You might want both. Please, I don't judge. Do what you want. Just as you're not sure a relationship will last forever, how can you be sure you're going to stay single? So why would you commit to something you don't want? Please, don't get me started on the people who marry themselves. Just don't. Now, remember those 3 myths we talked about? Well, they are half true. You are partly in control of your life and partly not. That is what makes it such a page-turner. So to make these sweeping assumptions like I'll never love again is to miss the point, really. You are the co-author of these stories. Now, you get to make a significant creative contribution, but you don't get to script it end to end. And if you try, you're going to be disappointed. Why? Because the love you seek in this life may not all come in the form of one person or all at one time. You might have some stories that are, a slow boil. Others will shock you with their intensity. Some will be a surprise ending. And others, a long goodbye. Some will be just a few verses, and others will fill volumes of your life. If we look at our past relationships only as a series of errors, well, the future is just a disaster waiting to happen. What kind of life is that? One filled with fear, doubt, and distrust? An effort to love and learn another person is never a waste. That effort defines who you are and what your life is like. I'll tell you what's a waste. Cheaping out on love and holding back because you're afraid to invest in anything that isn't a lifetime guarantee. Well, guess what? There are no guarantees. That's why I say, spend it all every time. Because in reflecting on your life, what your life is going to be is the combination, the total of all the love that you give. It's not a matter of whether it lasts forever. What matters is how closely you held it when you could. Thank you so much.